So far we're fetching playlists from the store only on the playlists page, but there are also a couple of places in the application where we need to reference some playlists. If we'll open up App Features Content component, we're going to see that in here we are defining an array of features, and those feature objects are very similar to playlists. So instead of declaring this array of features in this component, we can just fetch a couple of playlists from the store. We can construct these feature objects. Here's what we're going to do. First of all, I'm going to declare an array of icons, specifically icon names. These icon names will need to render the following icons inside of each feature card component. As a reminder, we're using plugin for icons that we have installed previously, and inside of nuxt.config.ts we have also previously defined a couple of icon aliases, and so some of the keys from this object I have just used in this array. Later on we're gonna need those icon names to create feature objects. Let's do it right now. I'm going to iterate over this list of icon names. On each loop iteration we're going to receive icon name inside this icon variable, and the second argument will contain an index of this icon name from the array. And we're gonna map each icon name into feature object that is going to contain 4 properties: title, description, link, and icon. Right away we're using shorthand property notation to assign icon variable to the icon property of this object. And next I'm going to fetch all playlists from the store, so that we'll be able to reference some of those playlist objects by using an index like this, and fetch particular titles and descriptions of playlists. And as for the link property, we're going to construct this URL on the fly, just like we have done in another component. But instead of repeating this logic over and over again, to get the slug, I'm going to create utility function. First of all, let's create new folder called utils, and within this folder I'm going to add the file with the name slugify.ts, where I'm going to define new function to obtain the slug. And Nuxt is also going to automatically import all the files from this folder, so we don't have to do it manually. Let's just define our function called slugify, which is going to take string and return the string where all the space characters will be replaced with dashes. I'm going to take this whole expression to get the slug, move it within this function, and what this expression is going to give us, we're going to return from this function. And now we can use this function to get the slug of the playlist. We just have to pass playlist title within this function right here. And for this URL we also have to find the slug of the first lesson. But first of all we need to have the lesson, so I'm going to use getLessonById function to obtain the lesson by ID. This function we can grab from the lesson store, and within this closure let's call this function to grab the first lesson of the particular playlist. And right here we can call slugify function once again, but this time we're passing lesson title to get the slug of this lesson. As you can see, TypeScript highlights this lesson variable, and that is because lesson might not be found. So right here I'm also going to add the following condition to check whether the lesson has been found. If not, we're basically going to throw an exception. And to create this exception, I'm going to use Nuxt function create error. We can pass some additional data as for what kind of an exception to throw. For example, we can specify status code of the exception as well as message. And once that will be done, we can remove that previously declared array of features from this component, because we are already building the same array by fetching data from the store. And all those feature objects are going to have identical structure as before, so that while passing each of those feature objects into our features card component, we don't have to modify anything within this component, since we are implicitly sticking to the same feature interface. Alright, cool, as you can see, features section looks great in the browser, and if we'll inspect app features content component, we'll see the local variable features, which is our array of features that we have just created based on the data fetched from the playlist store. And there is also another place where we can fetch playlist objects from the store, and based on those objects create list of links, and that is inside of the footer. If we'll take a look inside of our footer lists component, we're going to see this hard-coded array. So I suggest that we'll fetch playlist objects from the store and make this array dynamic. So what we'll need for this is array of playlists as well as getLessonById function. Each of those things we can grab from another component, app feature content. And based on the first 3 playlists from the store, we can obtain links. I'm going to paste the same expression to get the link into each of these objects right here. And as for the labels, we're going to use title of the playlist. This function slugify requires lesson, so we'll use getLessonById function to obtain lesson object. It expects lesson identifier, so let's grab the identifier of the first lesson of this playlist and pass it further into getLessonById function. And once this function returns the first lesson, we'll basically reference the title of this lesson and pass it further into slugify function. But as you can see, even at this point, the syntax has become quite difficult to understand. We can rewrite all this in another way. First of all, I'm going to take 3 random playlists from the store. For example, we can take playlists number 4, 5, and 6 and iterate over those playlists to generate links. Each link will be represented by the objects with 2 properties, label and the link. Label will be playlist title, and to obtain the link, we can just copy over this whole expression and paste it right here. Let's just tweak this variable. And actually, just like we have done in this component, we need to make sure that the lesson that we are fetching from the store actually exists. So I'm using the same check-in here. If the lesson will not exist, we're going to throw an exception. Alright, nice, we have generated links for the first footer list. Now let's do the same for the second one. I'm going to copy this whole logic and paste it within this second object. This object represents the second list in the footer. For this list, we're going to use different playlists, let's say first, second, and third. And the rest of the logic will remain the same. After doing this change, we're not supposed to see any differences in the footer. Well, actually we have used different objects for some of those links, so that is why we're seeing different text of some links in the footer. But the structure remains pretty much the same. And as for the third list in the footer, which contains external links to some social platforms, I'm going to modify those links and basically hardcode links to particular platforms. The first link will lead to YouTube, second one will lead to Telegram page, and the third one will lead to GitHub page. Before, I have also noticed an error inside of playlist grid item component. As you can see in here, lesson variable is highlighted due to the same reason as in other component, because we firstly have to make sure that this lesson exists. So I'm going to use same check-in here and throw an exception in case lesson does not exist. Alright, let's see if application still works without any errors. And before finishing this lesson, I'm going to do one more thing. Some of those footer links lead to external pages, but for now, all those links open up within the same browser tab. So let's just tweak app footer list item component a little bit. This component is responsible for rendering individual link in the footer. And in here I'm going to add target attribute and add the following ternary expression. Let's see if link starts with HTTP. That means that this is an external link and we have to open up this link in a different browser tab. So I'm going to use underscore blank value for this attribute. Otherwise, we're going to use undefined. Basically, we are falling back to the default behavior. And this way, attribute target with value of blank will be added only to those links that start with HTTP. As you can see, social links have target attribute. But if we'll inspect other playlist links, we're not going to see this target attribute in here. That's about it for this lesson. We'll continue working on the project in the next one. Link to the source code of this project will be, as always, in the video description.